when we put names to strong feelings, it transfers in our brain from a place of fear to a place of logic, which is a lot more faith filled. So if we need help, that's where professional help comes in the most for me, is understanding how to explain and put names to all those really big feelings. Because once you have a name for it, you can use it, it takes it to that logical place, and it's so much easier to process and work through those things in a logical way and just navigate through, okay, well, I know when I have this feeling, I react this way, so I need to do X, Y, Z, you know? You go through all those things. When it's fear, it's really hard to think through it because it's just a big feeling and all you can do is feel it. And so it just is there to feel and it doesn't go away. That's a big one to me in prayer is, this is what I felt today, right? Another one is your fears. This is what's scary right now, right? He knows that, he felt that. Like, you don't have to be good at explaining it, because he's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, so it's okay. I've had a few of those prayers where I'm like trying to, and it's just like, I know. Like, okay.
Okay.
And
then you go, oh yeah, I know you know. Yeah. Okay, good.
Challenges.
Yeah.
Right. You know, for us where we're at right now, we felt strongly that we need to pursue starting a business, and there's all sorts of hurdles to be able to do that. Right. And so in my prayers, I'm saying, okay, Heavenly Father, like, you think that this is something I need to do because I felt that, and I know that I can be good at what you're asking me to do, but I have this hurdle and this hurdle and this hurdle. Like, it's not bad. It has nothing to do with going to church, right? Like, finding an investor to buy me some really expensive, heavy equipment has nothing to do with the gospel, right? But me being a business owner, being able to create the right culture and environment for the right people to have the right place to work, that does have to do with the gospel. And so I can go and say, okay, I know that I can do this because I can create this environment that people need. But if I'm going to do that, then these are the logical things that I need for that. So that's what I'm working through. And I keep getting little, well, have you talked to this person in a while? Have you talked to this person in a while? Mm-hmm. You know, and the answers are not like someone knocked on my door and was like, I have $1 million for you, spend it, right? It's hey, reach out to this person, they might have an idea, right? And so I'm piecing together those little things piece by piece by all those. Maybe call that guy, you know. Talk about our wins, right? Hey, I just wanted to tell you that I had this really stressful moment today, and I totally handled it like a champ, and I didn't fall into any of those. Like, I am really happy because I had a good day. Like, you don't have to go to him and say, here's all the bad stuff, right? Like, I did this good today, and I'm proud of myself. And say, I'm proud of you too, you know? And just a general return and report, you know, we learn a lot about this in the temple, but there is a gospel principle of just a generic, this is what I did, right? This is what I was asked to do. This is what I did. I imagine that when we get to the other side, it's going to be a lot of that, right? That meeting with the Savior is not, I think it starts with a hug, right? Happy to see you, big hug. And then he'll say, tell me how it was, right? It's not a, did you keep my commandments? Did you do everything you were supposed to do? Did you this? It's just like, tell me what you did, right? He's not going to grill us and interview us. It's just tell me how it went. What was good? What was bad? What'd you learn? Right? And then he'll just talk with us about it. And then I think one of the biggest things for me that's important to express is gratitude. Gratitude provides perspective to allow us to find happiness. My family, my wife, because she's a lot more put together than I am, was thinking about, our kids were really little, and she was like, okay, we need to make sure that we're teaching them gratitude, right? Because that's what moms do. They're in charge of that nurture. So she was like, I just feel really strongly we need to do something to teach, like, to be grateful every day. She's like, I don't know if I want to start a gratitude journal because, like, our kids are 2 and 3. So like they can like journal every night about what they're grateful for, you know. So we came up with this idea that I think most American families during Thanksgiving go around the table and everyone say something you're thankful for, and you know, like we do that every night. So every night as a part of dinner, whether someone's over for dinner or not, doesn't matter. If we're out to eat at a restaurant, we go around the table and everybody says something they're grateful for, and that's something my kids can wrap their head around, and my kids will remind us.
That's cute.
Right? Yeah. And that is such a simple way that as a family we can show gratitude together. Right? Now I'm not saying that that's something that everybody should do, but that's just something small and simple that works for my family to show consistent gratitude. You know, so I think sometimes when we show gratitude, we think about writing this really long letter and, you know, flowers and a thank you card, and you know, it doesn't have to be this big grand gesture of gratitude. Just say, I'm thankful for that. That was good.
Yeah.
I appreciated that today, right? And so I think prayer is a great place to say, let him know. Say, you know, I'm really grateful for this today. It made a difference. So then we look at, sorry, I'm going kind of long, but we're all good. Okay.
Everyone okay?
Yep.
Okay. So 2 more things, study and time. Okay. So if we're making poor decisions because of poorly understood principles, then one of the most important things we can do is understand the principles, right? And that comes through study. So there's 2 types of study. There's like a temporal understanding and there's a spiritual understanding. And we should be studying both. Okay, so the temporal understanding would be things like going to counseling, having a very scientifically analyzed view of what you're going through, putting names to those feelings, right? Those people have studied a lot about human emotion and behavior, and they have a very great ability to analyze and kind of put things into categories and help you figure out and navigate it, right? And so that's a huge one for temporal understanding. But then things like what you were doing as sitting in a group and talking, listening to podcasts, reading books, listening to speeches, right? Those are all from like an academic standing of trying to understand what all these things are. I love Brene Brown. I listen to like everything from her, right? That's one of the temporal things that I study a lot because the way she describes it makes sense in my brain, right? And so you got to find all these things that make sense to you that help you gain a temporal understanding of feelings and processes. Then there's the spiritual understanding, which is prayer, reading scriptures, conference talks, right? Counseling with your bishop or other priesthood leaders, right? Or with your spouse, right? Those are more spiritual understanding. And the way we learn is a little bit different. When we learn temporal things, it's very academic, it's facts, understanding facts and applying them, right? Spiritual understanding is more about communication and feeling, right? So sometimes it's a little bit harder for us to understand because it's hard for us to enter the spiritual realm when we're in a physical world, right? Because I can touch this table, I know it's here, I understand it, right? But to say, what does the table feel? I don't know.
Well, there's something about that for me that was interesting. Like I had a really hard time understanding the concept of like that you are loved by God. Like really, really, really basic, very basic spiritual information because of the ways that I was being destroyed by shame from a very young age. So it took for me more of a temporal educational approach for me to then be able to cross over. So like one of my favorite quotes that I say probably every time we're here is between stimulus and response, there's a space, from Viktor Frankl. And in that space is who we are. So like when you grow up in this shame-based way, like that, just that like choice, that soul gets kind of smaller and smaller until it's smushed. So there's like stimulus, response, and the in-between is kind of snuffed out. And that in-between is that spiritual realm. So the temporal education of, listening to podcasts and having it be less spiritual is really helpful for me to become more.
Yeah, I think
open.
they kind of bounce back and forth, right? For me, I needed some more academic knowledge to understand some spiritual things, and then once I had that more spiritual knowledge, then more academic stuff started to make deeper sense.
Yeah.
Which then led to deeper understanding of spiritual things. Like kind of back and forth
Yeah,
your
I
whole
think
life.
it's probably different for everyone. I don't know.
I think that's how the 12-step program is too, is like, because
Yes.
you're not, a lot of people who are addicts and stuff can't even accept God in their lives because it's just too much, or they've had bad experiences, or whatever the reason. And by doing the 12 steps, you can you can't take it out, but like you can start them on learning things, but then they have to actually accept that there is a higher power, whatever they believe that is. But that higher power is what's going to get them through this whole process. And until you can accept that, you're not gonna heal. You're not gonna recover or whatever. So
that's something that comes to my mind is just like our physical body and our soul. Like we need to feed ourselves physically and spiritually. And if I'm like neglecting to eat any physical food, it's going to be hard for me to study spiritual things. Like it's going to affect that. And so it's not like, oh, I'm just going to study spiritual things and neglect or nourish myself spiritually. It's like I still need that physical aspect. And I can't neglect the spiritual either, because if I'm just physical, then my soul is withering. So like,
Yeah.
well, the youth program has the 4 aspects.
True, and then
Right.
the whole concept of our bodies and our spirit being our soul,
right,
is really important that we
Right.
acknowledge both. Excuse me.
yeah,
But these are fun concepts.
Yeah, no, so I think those are kind of what I see in how we search understanding. But like you said, there's definitely balance needed, and there understanding in both is needed, right? All of us probably know someone who academically is incredibly intelligent. They understand so much about whatever field they're in, even if it's not what we're discussing, right? Academically, they're so smart, and they do not understand the spirit at all. And they're usually kind of obnoxious, right? On the other hand, we also know someone who is overly spiritual and has no idea what's going on academically, And those people can be really hard too,
But this is really helpful for me, because I tend to think of spiritual like, oh, that's the good, and the physical is not the highest good. Like if you can just focus on the spiritual, that's really where it's at. But seeing like, no, like if you're not grounded in like this physical body, like then you're missing something. Like there's both.
Well, and I think, we're not necessarily, I think one of the biggest things we're here to learn is the relationship between those two worlds, right? So it's not understanding one or the other, it's how they work together.
Yeah.
Right? Talmadge talked about how science is man's way of understanding God. Right? And I don't think most of us think of science that way. Right? But that's how he described it. And so I think if all those principles of gospel, like we talked earlier, are teaching us spiritual control over a physical world, well, how can you have control over a world that you don't understand? Right? And so we have to understand the physical world. We have to understand those temporal things, or those spiritual things we learn don't have a place to be applied.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have to have both to really excel. Yeah. Good there.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last thing that's really important is time. And I think this is the one that I struggle with the most, because I am a perfectionist and I'm a workaholic, and I feel like I truly deep down feel that if there is something to be accomplished, you can just throw it on my back and it will happen. Right? Like I have that. That served me well in a lot of ways. I've been able to do a lot, right? But sometimes if I go to work and I don't get the result, then it's like,
More time.
well, then I guess I'll just quit working. Right?
Yes, that's more my approach.
Interesting.
There you work more.
So
Interesting.
what we have to understand, coming from the oil field, one of the jobs I've had is to clean drilling rigs once they're done drilling before we can load them up and haul them to the next site, right? As you can imagine, that is not a clean job. All right, so I mean, to wash my clothes after that, so we would wear like chem suits on top of coveralls, and that didn't even get everything out, right? All the Tyvek, you know that it's dirty. And to wash those clothes is not like I wash the clothes that I go to church in, right? I go to church, I wear them for a couple hours, I throw them in the washer, they probably don't even need that. Throw them in the dryer, hang them up, done, right? To wash my clothes from work, I soak them in diesel to break up the oil, and then I rinse out the diesel so that I don't have diesel in my washer. And then I wash them, usually twice, right? And then dry them. So something that's dirtier or a bigger deal takes a lot more to clean it back out, right? And so I think sometimes, especially with addiction is usually a dependency created because we didn't know how to cope. And so that's usually a very deep-seated process to root out, right? Because we have to work all the way back down to the root, figure out what's going on at the root, and then work all the way back out, replacing that behavior. And that's a big thing, and big things take longer because there's more steps. And it's just how it is, right? And I think that for me is so hard, right? This is the one that I struggle with the most, right? Prayer and study, I'm like, got it, right? Time is so hard for me. I am not a patient person because I just want to put the work in. I want to get the result and I want to move on.
Yeah, that's the very first thing I said. My first eating disorder. So, all right, now I'm here and I have the diagnosis. Okay, just tell me what to do. Let's get this over with.
Yeah. Yep. I'll do it. It'll be done.
Just give me the outline, we'll go to work.
I
and
want
it's
this
done.
result.
Yeah. Sure.
And I think that's one of the hardest things that I've had to learn, not just around addictions or struggles, just everything like that. These are more lifelong processes, right? The repentance process is not this was bad, you fix it and you move on, right? The repentance process is this very fluid process of coming closer to Christ, right? And so I think as we work through these things, it's important to remember that, like, it's okay if it takes a while.
Yeah,
as long as you're moving forward.
Because if you
it's okay.
just got the result, like, I cannot just imagine if I got the result
And it's
within
just
the
done and it's
first
gone.
6 months. Or
Yeah, a lot of development would have been missed out on.
even though I do still want the result as.
Yes, but you
And-
would not have changed in all kinds of other ways.
Yeah,
that-
I would not want to go back to healthy, fit, athletic
Mhm.
girl who was feeling like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'd rather look like this, and talking about eating disorder worlds and body
Yeah.
image issues. I'd rather look like this and feel like this
Mhm.
than look like that and feel like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Which
that
is-
you can say that.
So that's some result,
Oh yeah,
That's
that's
what
big.
and I still want to look.
It's big. Yeah, it's been
And
turned
go
off.
back to the dumb clinic.
Patience.
But I think that's part of the
Process.
understanding
Right.
that we gain, right?
Yeah, that's the result. That's a beautiful result.
Yeah, that's really what we're after. And I think sometimes when we first start, we kind of have this narrow tunnel vision of, I just don't want it to be a problem,
Right. Oh yeah.
right? I just want the problem gone. We don't realize what that actually entails, right? Just say, I struggle with this, I just want it to be gone. I don't want to struggle anymore. It's like, well, you can't just not struggle with it. That means that you have to be okay with whatever the root cause of that is and have a healthy coping behavior to replace it. And that takes time and it takes a lot of work. So
I think that's for like recovery and with addicts. In my husband's case and stuff, he's kind of said, okay, I'm going to be going to these meetings and doing this recovery for the rest of my life because this is innate and I know that this is what I'm going to need, and I've decided that too. Like I've got other issues, codependency and other types of addictions and stuff that I've used as coping.
Yeah.
And so now I know I have to be doing these types of things for the rest of my life because I want this for one, to stay, well, in his case, stay clean, and in my case, I just want to have better behaviors and have better relationships.
Right,
And
because
so-
your behaviors as a spouse directly affect his behaviors and vice versa.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? The scriptures talk about coming together as one flesh, right? So, a spouse's influence is really important, both positively and negatively. And so that's part of how we communicate with our spouse, but also something that we need to take into account as we interact with others that are that close to us in our life,
And also just coming to that realization that like this is going on, but this is what accepting that time. Like the rest of my life, is that what you're saying? Like coming to that realization is actually really freeing, because the first time you walk through those types of doors of recovery meetings and stuff, it's just like, this is like, I can't even keep together. This is the most brave thing I've ever done. And then you go for like 2 years or so, and then it's like, I can't wait to be there. I need this. I wish it was more, and people are laughing, and it's just this really beautiful process that you don't want to.
I kind of want to say something. I kind of feel like I need more support from my wife. So when I think about you, the way you support your husband, and I feel like I need a lot of support. I've told her before, but I don't know. I mean, we're kind of like in a not that great of a spot, but I'm trying to work through it. But like I said, a lot of the time I don't really have much time, but like talking about it, I feel like I need to talk about it and find out what's really going on, and trying to iron things out, and trying to find better ways to cope with what I'm going through and stuff like that.
You can give your number.
And what I found, so my wife has struggled with anxiety, I've struggled with depression, all those things, and what I've noticed is the best way to have other people be vulnerable with you is to be vulnerable with them.
And in those meetings, that's where you get to a point, is that you feel safe and you feel comforted by everyone else in a 12-step meeting, or even at this table, which is similar, is you're feeling like I can share my experiences and I'm not going to have anyone judge me.
It's so relieving.
You just feel so free. Like, it's such
So
an
relieving.
amazing feeling to know that they have felt the same thing, because you hear and even if it's a different situation, you still have this weird connection. You're like, oh, you know exactly how I feel. You know exactly how I feel. And so
Right, and
you have that. No, go ahead.
So, like, when I think about it, I'm kind of shy, and I really don't have that many friends. I used to, but we were all drinking together, and I wanted, stop doing all that crap. And, so, what was I gonna say? So, like, my family too, as well, like, my brother, he drinks a lot, he drinks all the time, and they're just, I just feel like we're not that close. We used to be when my dad was around, and years before that, like when my grandma was around, because we used to gather together as a family, but then like over the years we started falling apart and just like distancing from each other. And so I feel like I don't have that much, I don't got support from anybody. And so when I'm not supported from my wife, I feel like I can't go to my brothers or my sisters. Actually, I know I can't, because they've told me how they felt about me, and so I just kind of hold it in, and I just kind of deal with it with myself, and then that's when I go do my own thing, and I go drink or whatever, and then if my wife's not supporting me, I feel like I have nothing and nobody. So that's why I was like, why even worry? I mean, why even care if I feel like nobody cares about me, So that's why I did. That's why I do a lot of the things that I do. I drink every couple of months. I don't know. It's easy thing to say to stop doing, but it's hard. hard to do it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
We all know.
Really hard.
And my wife, she's like, my wife's parents have, so this is how close I am to my family that lives here. My wife's parents have come from Omaha, Nebraska, and have seen my kids more than my family, and they live in Fort Collins, and I live in Wellington. So
tough.
that's how close I am with my family here.
Yeah, that hurts. That's sad.
I've got a lot of really cut ties with family from.
Yeah, the addiction recovery group for you and your wife both. It sounds like it would be ideal for both of you. Like there's a spouses
Do you live
support
near?
group, and
Yeah, I live in Wellington.
I mean it'd be a drive. It's at the Stake Center, but it's worth it. That's yeah.
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 We're there every week.
Bring the kids over.
Let them play in the
Families
gym.
watch them, kid.
Yeah,
But yeah.
We would love to. We would love to have you.
sure.
We're. I mean, it was online for so long that it felt
in
so
person
distant.
now.
We're in person now, and it's already. It's
They're
already.
getting together to try and feel unified. And
Yes. I mean, we met some great people through it. It's, you know.
They
the
sometimes zoom in still.
And they still zoom in because they're part of our group now, but like just having this interaction, which we've had, thank you, Bev, this whole time. But it's just been awesome. It's a really
There's.
comforting to have that support.
We'll give you our phone numbers.
Support and love and understanding. Like that's what you're gonna gain through those programs is more understanding.
Right.
And it, like you said at the beginning, you talked about like what is the root cause and stuff. And so, I mean, in the 12 step, you talk about character defects, which isn't the addiction. There's so many other things and layers that lead up to that addiction.
Yeah, like
And-
this next week for this group, we're gonna do step 4.
Step 4.
Awesome.
Yeah, you looking forward to it.
Yeah,
And
it'll be good.
It'll be fun.
It's one of the best. But
Yeah. So.
So that's pretty much the big things that I've learned from my experiences in life. So
That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
hopefully
Way
that
you
provides perspective on
describe
things
it,
you guys
yeah.
already know.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Yeah.
all of that.
Really wonderful. Yeah, so I'll stop the recording.